One of the reasons why people are so stuck with their content, they're not seeing the growth, is because they're just too scattered. They're doing content on popular topics and keywords for SEO purposes. They're serving their audience, giving their audience everything they want. And before you know it, you have a big, huge mess with generalized messaging and content on so many different topics. Well, in this episode, what we're going to talk about is how to get rid of all those problems and create a messaging ecosystem that creates demand, doesn't require people to think, but elicits a feeling where they know you are the right person for them. So if that interests you, keep on listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're talking all about messaging, my favorite things to talk about, messaging, content, all that good stuff. But today we're going to talk about specifically the messaging ecosystem. It's a very simple concept. You may have heard me talk about this concept before, but I'm willing to bet that if you're still unheard, your message is still confused, people aren't paying attention to your content, you don't even understand what it is you do or how to communicate it, I'm willing to bet you do not have a messaging ecosystem set up. And what a messaging ecosystem is an ecosystem, or even just a document, or I guess what I'd call borders, boundaries, framework in which your messaging is living. Your communication lives within this ecosystem. No matter where someone sees you, listens to you, whether it be someone else's podcast, maybe you're doing a guest talk to someone's mastermind, maybe it's your top of funnel content, your message and what you're saying and your content should relatively be the same no matter where someone goes and hears you, listens to your content. And what a messaging ecosystem does is it allows you to create an environment. There's the word I was looking for, environment. It allows you to create an environment that the longer people live inside of, or stay or visit inside of that environment, there's a couple things that start to happen. Number one, they're very clear on what you do. Number two, they know exactly what mistakes and pain you're going to take away from them. Number three, they know exactly how you can do that specifically and uniquely for them. There should be demand being created inside of this ecosystem. They should know your values. They should know who you are. That rapport, the know, like, and trust should be built. The thing is we need all these elements for sales, right? We know we need rapport. We know we need the know, like, and trust. We need authority. But the problem is no one really focuses on getting all of those things at the same time. But when we focus on a messaging ecosystem, the longer people live in that ecosystem or that environment, they get to experience all of those things. Now, I want you to imagine for a second what will happen if you were able to create an ecosystem where it created demand, where people started to trust you because of the things you're saying. You started to use your values and identities. You started to be very clear on who you serve and who you are. So you only attracted those best people. Then you sent all of them down a sales funnel. We all know that we need the know, like, and trust. We all heard that 1.5 million times. The problem is when most people go to do launches and they just go to sell their products and stuff, they wait for the sales mechanism, the webinar, the video series, or the funnel to try to generate the know, like, and trust. But I'm telling you right now that if your top of funnel content, your message, no matter where someone heard you, is all consistent, created demand, that your sales will go through the roof. And there's a couple pieces that we want to dial in. There's a couple elements that need to work together to create your messaging ecosystem. But I want to start by talking about the unheard entrepreneur trap. And if you're listening to this episode, you may find yourself in this trap. In fact, I'm willing to bet probably about 90% of online course creators, service providers, program creators live within this unheard entrepreneur trap. And there's a couple reasons why. The competition right now as a course creator has never been as intense as it is right now. It's a very easy way to start a business with low cost, right? You don't have to have a lot of overhead. You don't need to rent a building. You don't need to sign a lease or any of that stuff in order to start an online business. And because of COVID, everyone's trying to go online now. And so competitors are going through the roof. And what has happened for a lot of years is people have told you that you need valuable content in order to build a business online. And you do. But what people haven't done, and we talk about this in our Content Revolution video series, what we haven't done is actually sat down and asked ourselves, what does valuable actually mean? And what happens is so many people get stuck in this trap where they think value is just giving more information, it's giving more steps, giving more tutorials. And when there wasn't a lot of competition and you were the only person teaching weight loss or you're the only person teaching Instagram and you were giving tutorials, there weren't a lot of options. So when you posted a video, how to, post on Instagram, there was maybe 5 videos that they could watch. There was 5 people teaching that. But nowadays there's thousands. So now when you do a video titled how to post on Instagram, the competition is through the roof. There's thousands of videos all titled the exact same thing. Now, you might have a different process than everyone else, but this isn't about you knowing that. It's about the audience knowing that. It's about the cold traffic knowing that. And what that means is when they go to Instagram or they go to YouTube and they search for something like how to post on Instagram and they see your video with 10 other videos titled how to post on Instagram, they don't know that you're different. So they perceive you as exactly the same as everyone else. And you're stuck in what I call the content circle of death. It's the unheard entrepreneur trap, where you're only adding value by giving out more information, but because you're giving out more information or the same information as everyone else, you blend in no matter how unique you know you are. And I'm willing to bet that if you're listening to this episode, you've probably had thoughts like, I can help people. Why aren't you letting me help people? Like universe, God, whatever. Why aren't you letting me help people? What is going on? I'm adding so much value and I'm really, truly wanting to help people, but no one's paying attention to it. If you feel like you just want to climb to the top of a mountain and scream like, I can help people, just let me help you. Well, I'm willing to bet that you have fallen into this content circle of death, where 70% or more of your content is how-to educational content. Now, when we look at the New York Times bestseller list for books, you know what we don't see there? You know what we don't see topping the charts of the bestsellers list? Are encyclopedias. Why? If information and tutorials and things like that were truly the best way to add value, then why don't we have encyclopedias or tutorial-based books or scientific reports topping the charts? Now, I will say we do have educational books and videos and content that are really popular, but we do have educational books that can change your life, that can add a lot of value in the New York Times bestseller list. What are they doing? Well, they have learned how to communicate. They've learned how to create a message. They've learned how to shift your perspective, get you to see something differently. It's not about just giving someone information. It's about getting someone to see something differently. If someone has a perspective on life that is causing suffering, and they think like this is the way that things are supposed to be because they haven't seen another perspective, you can come in and shift that perspective and free them from that. That could be the most valuable thing you can do for anyone. And it is an art form. There's a level of mastery that has to go into this. But it all starts from creating that messaging ecosystem. When I go and do a talk or I have a podcast episode on someone else's podcast or I'm talking to you guys here, I have reoccurring elements that I'm hitting on every single time. The pain points, the metaphors, the avatars. There's a lot of different elements that go into creating this messaging ecosystem, but the messaging ecosystem is what gives you consistency. Most people won't do this. Most people will not create an ecosystem because they feel like they might be repeating themselves all the time, but you should be repeating yourselves all the time. Sometimes it takes people 5-10 times hear something before they actually take action on it. And people are always growing and learning. The longer your audience sits inside your ecosystem, the lens in which they see the world changes. So even if they heard you say something 5 times and you say it a 6th time, and they have a different lens on how they see the world, it's going to land differently for them. They're going to see it differently. Okay. So let's talk about the messaging ecosystem. Now, again, we are having our Content Revolution video series premiere soon. And I'm not sure when this episode is going to be live in comparison to that, but we will be diving deeper into the messaging ecosystem in that series. But what I want to do is I want to go over it right now and give you those elements so that you're ready for that video series. So when we create the messaging ecosystem, there are two different identities we want. And we call these the struggling avatar and the future-paced hero. The struggling avatar is basically the people that you're going to be selling to. It's going to be your audience. Now, we've been told for a lot of years that we should just make this person up, visualize who they are, what their pain points are, their name. But I've always had an issue with that. And my issue is that that's a fake person. You're literally making someone up. And when you make someone up, you're also making up their pain points, their struggles. You're making all of that stuff up. And that leads you to having very bland, generalized messaging because you can't get to the deeper layers. And it's a very easy fix. All you're going to do is just imagine yourself as the struggling avatar because you likely have gone through some kind of transformation yourself that you are now helping other people with. Which means you were literally the avatar. You were literally the person who was struggling and overcame it. You know the thoughts you have in your head. You know the feelings. You know the mistakes you're making. You know the specifics. That's key. That's gold. Now, if you're the type of person who wasn't your struggling avatar, like sometimes we get doctors and doctors help people with certain things that they may not have gone through themselves. You just want to imagine your number one client. But the idea here is, and actually have a conversation with them. But the idea here with all of this is that it needs to be a real freaking person who had real mistakes, real thoughts, real pain that you can tap into and use for your content messaging. Now, what we're going to do is give them an identity. So for me, I call them the unheard entrepreneurs. For you, just give some kind of name. It doesn't matter what it is, but anytime you talk about a mistake, a problem, whatever that they're experiencing, you're going to say, if you're doing that or experiencing that, you are the struggling avatar, the unheard entrepreneur. And what that does over time is it has your audience self-identify, I am over here with this identity. I am the unheard entrepreneur. They self-identify there and realize that they have a problem. Then we create the future-paced hero, which is anytime we talk about a benefit, something they want, a desire they have, we talk about the future-paced hero. For me, that's the new generation entrepreneur. So anytime I talk about benefits and desires and things that you might want, I always say that's the new generation entrepreneur. Anytime I talk about mistakes and problems, I say that's the unheard entrepreneur. So what happens is this starts to create a demand gap. The longer someone sits inside of my messaging ecosystem, the bigger that demand gap gets. And they're the ones that self-identified that there is a gap. So anytime I'm on a podcast, videos, I'm always dropping the struggling avatars and the future-based heroes. And again, it's not like I'm just doing one video and here's a struggling avatar and here's a future-based hero. I'm mentioning it everywhere. So the longer they sit in the ecosystem, they're hearing it more and more and more. Sometimes in a video, I might not even mention the future-paced hero. I just might mention the struggling avatar. But then a week later, they're sitting in my messaging ecosystem. They hear me talk about the future-paced hero in a different piece of content. That's what I'm talking about. It's being patient. It's letting people sit in that ecosystem and experiencing and absorbing all of these elements. Now, those are just two. That's just identity and avatars that you can use. There's other things like unique solution and different stuff like that. Like for example, I have the Video 4X methodology. I don't think I'm a messaging expert. I don't think I'm a content expert or a video expert. I am the creator of the Video 4X effect. That's what people know me for. That is my unique solution. That is the thing that will fix the problem for the unheard entrepreneur, and people know that. So now that I can incorporate my methodology and my pillars inside of my ecosystem, now guess what starts to happen? People self-identify as the struggling avatar. They want to be the future-paced hero. And then my unique solution, the Video 4X effect, is the thing that bridges that gap. So as people live inside of my messaging ecosystem, they start to experience demand for the Video 4X effect methodology. And guess what I sell? I sell the Video 4X course where you can access the Video 4X methodology. When you have a messaging ecosystem and you're patient and you realize the longer people sit there, the more elements they get exposed to, the more demand you're going to see, the more desire you're going to see, the more relatable you're going to be. it becomes a really powerful thing. Now, the question is like, well, okay, Brandon, I get this whole messaging ecosystem. I understand that there's the, a struggling avatar, a future-paced hero, and a unique solution. Well, what content do I do? How do I come up with content? And there's a process to this. One of the reasons that most people have struggles with messaging and content is because there's actually two things that you need to take into consideration. And most people don't take either one of them into consideration when creating content. Number one, most people never take into consideration what they're actually saying. They're not intentional with it. And this might be you. And if it is, you are that unheard entrepreneur. What this is you're creating content because you're serving your audience and you're giving them everything that they say they want. You're basing all of your content on how to, like, topics and keywords and popular search terms. You are doing a ton of how-to educational content. And the reason why those all create problems is because you're letting SEO and keywords and survey results dictate your content and your message. You're literally letting it dictate your message. And when you give out information all the time, tutorials, there's no message there. There's no message behind a tutorial. It's literally like, here's the information. No one knows what you stand for, what you believe in. They just know that you have knowledge on something. But the problem is people don't base things off of knowledge. They don't base things off of logic. They base things off of these invisible layers. For example, look at your top 3 best friends. I'm willing to bet that you're friends with them because there is a shared core value, but more importantly, there's probably a shared identity, and it's probably an identity that you both hold really high, and it's really important to you. For example, a lot of the people that I hang out with are parents. We both have identities of being a parent, and those are high on our list of importance. It wasn't because I made some logical decision of like, yeah, I think this person makes sense on paper. Here's the pros and cons. I'm going to be friends with them. No, these invisible elements going on. That's why we have to be intentional with what we're saying. We want to release things like identities and values and beliefs, but we need it to be relatable to our unique solution. But simply by incorporating identity into the titles of your content, simply by being really intentional with what beliefs you're going to say that you believe in, or what beliefs you want to thought reversal, what beliefs you want to take away from people because it's causing suffering. For example, most people believe that you need to do how-to educational content all the time in order to add value. And I think people suffer because of that. And I think you might be suffering because of that. I think it causes you to blend in, and no one has stepped in and told you something different. So what I'm doing is I identified a belief that the audience has held, and I'm freeing them from it, freeing you from it, and ending that suffering. And that's what you should be doing too. But it only happens when you actually are intentional and you focus on what you're saying inside of your content and your messaging. And again, most people don't do that because they just go straight to survey results. They go straight to popular keywords or topics, straight to frequently asked questions. And they don't take the time to understand, who am I? They don't take the time to sit in silence, remember who they are, understand what impact they want. It's all about, I'm going to give out more information. If I give out more information, then people will buy from me. But once you understand what you're saying, your content can go so much deeper. Once you understand what your message is, you can have connection content, inspirational content, motivational content, content that releases core values and beliefs. And what starts to happen is you actually integrate you into content, which means that when people consume your content and they like it, what they're saying is they like you. They connect with you. And that's the same reason why, someone can put up a how-to tutorial on YouTube and there could be 50 of them, but one person's going to get way more views than the other people. Why is that? The steps are probably almost the same. It's because people aren't watching that specific person because their information was better than everyone else. There's probably something they related to that person. Like maybe they liked the person's sense of humor. Maybe they liked their energy. Maybe the person was a parent and they're a parent too. There's always invisible things going on to our subconscious that people aren't aware of, but I want to make you aware of it. Again, when you're determining who your best friends are and who you spend the most amount of time with, by these invisible elements, and your friend attracted you to them and vice versa, why are we not doing the same thing with our content? If you've had issues with your audience not being the right audience, like they're just not the right people, they don't understand my message, I can't attract the right people, I guarantee you have not been intentional with what you're saying. You're stuck in that unheard entrepreneur trap. You've not been using identity. You have not been using values. You've been not using beliefs. You haven't been using beliefs. But once you understand that, you can start to form content. Now, that's only side one of the equation. Hopefully you have been doing that. If you haven't, then it's time to start changing it up and switching it up. But that's number one when we create the messaging ecosystem. We want to understand what you're saying, what you stand for. You can still do how-to and educational content. It just isn't going to be 100% of what you do. And you can also educate without having to give tutorials. Look at Simon Sinek. Like go to Simon Sinek TED Talk. Gives an amazing TED Talk, has millions of views, gives out great lessons and information, but he's not doing it in a tutorial. He's shifting perspective. He's getting you to see something different. He's engaging, inspirational. There's other things going on. We've just been so indoctrinated and conditioned to believe that education has to happen through tutorials and information, number one. And the only way to add value is by giving people more information. There's so many more ways to add value. And I promise you right now, if the only way you know how to add value is through information, you're actually missing the most important way to add value. Sometimes taking things away from people or shifting the perspective on something is way more valuable than giving them more steps. If you take a fear away from them, you take a belief away from them. For example, I could give you a tutorial on how to go make a video. And if you have a fear of being on the camera, it's not going to do you any good because you're not going to go do it. However, if I remove the fear of the camera, that's so much more powerful than a tutorial on how to make a video. Again, you need both. You want both. But a lot of people don't do both. So let's look at the second part of the equation. First part of the equation is focusing on what you're saying and being intentional with it. Number two is how you say it. Most people don't do that. Most people do not take into consideration how they are saying their message, their words, their content. They're not focusing on how to say it so that it appeals to the subconscious mind. Right now in this podcast episode, you've already made a decision if you like this or not, if it was boring or not, if it was entertaining or not. And it came up in the form of a feeling. You didn't logically decide, yeah, this is good or this is bad, this is entertaining or not. Here's the checklist. Here's what qualifies good. Here's what qualifies bad. No. The way in which I'm communicating, which was very intentional, and I was very focused on how I was saying things, appeals to the subconscious mind. It doesn't require you to think about anything. Now, this is really important. We actually talk about this in video 4 of our Content Revolution video series that's premiering very soon, if not already out. There's an entire video on this. What you do and how you need to communicate needs to appeal to the subconscious mind so that it makes sense to your audience. For example, if I just came out and I said, how-to content, some of the worst content you can do in your entire life, I can't believe you're doing it, that's why you're stuck. That is a message that I have, but if I just say that and move on, that's not going to go over very well with the audience. However, if I said, how-to content could be some of the worst content that you do in order to grow your brand, I understand why you think that. I totally get it because that's what everyone is saying. But look at Gary Vaynerchuk. He's grown faster than anyone has and ever will, but he's never done a single tutorial-based educational video. Now what happens is the subconscious mind hears that polarizing statement. I lived in compassion a little bit and said, look, I understand why you think that. And then I gave a counterexample that proved that there are people thriving and growing faster than everyone else without using traditional how-to content. I completely discredited the belief. And what that does to the subconscious mind allows the subconscious mind to go, oh my God, I never thought of that before. Wow, like mind-blowing moments, right? So what happens with a lot of people is they get very bold and they build up a lot of courage to go say the things they want to say, but they never think about how to say it so that it actually lands with the audience in a way where they don't have to think in order to agree with it. I use this example with my son all the time. I wanted my son to go clean his room. and that was my message, like, hey, I need you to go clean your room. That's the message I have for you. Go do that. Go clean your room. I could walk over there and communicate that to him, say, hey, William, go clean your room right now and do it because I'm your dad and I told you to. Or I could say, hey, William, Superman cleaned his room in 5 minutes. Can you beat Superman? I'm way more likely to get the result that I want with the Superman phrasing. It's the same exact message. It's just communicated differently. And there are patterns. There are frameworks. There are ways to do this so that when you communicate, it pulls people in. It creates demand. It elicits a feeling that doesn't require them to think. I can't tell you how important this is. And I'm willing to bet that if you've been plateaued on your sales, you've been plateaued on messaging or your audience growth, or even engagement on your content, like it's just not growing, and it's been like that for more than 3 months, I'm willing to bet that you have not been intentional with either what you're saying or how to say it, or possibly even both. And if it's both, well, then I really hope you registered for the video series. Even if it's just one of them, I hope you did. So we have to be able to focus on both. So let's just kind of recap where we're at. There is the messaging ecosystem. This is basically like your messaging Bible. And what it does is it creates an environment that people can sit in. The longer they consume your content, they follow you, they hear you on different podcasts, different episodes, other people's podcasts, stuff like that. It's all the same. And the longer they sit there, the more elements of your messaging they get to experience, which creates demand. It builds rapport. It builds connection. It forces them to want to work with you. Some of the things that will happen when this messaging ecosystem is completely dialed in is you'll start getting DMs from people saying, I want to work with you. What do you sell? How do I work with you? Love your content. If you're not getting those DMs, then that means you have improvements that you can make within your messaging ecosystem. Okay. Now, those elements include things like the struggling avatar, the future-paced hero, your unique solution, just to name a few. There's some more things like beliefs, core values, thought reversal videos, thought reversal topics, which we'll talk more about in the video series. But you have to understand, number one, what you're saying. Most people never do that. They just automatically go to survey results and tutorials and let all these external world things control their message instead of creating a message that people are enrolled to. I mean, like, seriously, just think about it for a second. Do you see Simon Sinek or Gary Vaynerchuk walking around serving their audience saying, tell me guys, tell me what to create for you? No, they create content that enrolls people, that pulls people in and gets people to go like, yes, I love this. That's what they do. So why are we not doing it? And then number two, we have to focus on how to say it so we don't require the audience to think it has to appeal to their subconscious mind. Okay. Now, obviously there's an art form to this, and I mentioned it a few times. We are premiering the Content Revolution video series, but we're doing something pretty unique this time. And the reason why we're doing this, the reason why we're doing something a little bit unique is because I want to help you nail this in on a deeper level. I believe to my core that if you're someone who wants to create an impact, you want to build a business, you want, freedom for yourself, for your family, but you also want to create an actual real change in the planet, in the world, much like Simon Sinek does, Brene Brown, Mel Robbins, all of them, that this is the stuff that you need. This is the stuff that they're all doing, but no one will tell you it. No one will break it down for you. We're going to break it down. And what we're doing is we're doing a live watch party, which means the video series will be premiering. You can go watch it as much as you want, anytime you want, 24/7 for an entire week. But we will be doing a live viewing party where I'm going to sit there with you and stream it right to you. And I'm going to break down and be there for hours, breaking down, here's what we revealed in this video. Here's the point that I hope you grasped. Here's how to take this information and apply it to your business. Here's the things that you need to not be doing. And I'm also going to be answering your questions. This is a completely free live event where I will stream the video series to you, and then I'm going to be breaking it down detail by detail by detail. I will warn you, we're going to go deep and we're going to go in depth. So make sure that you book out a couple hours for this. But if you loved what we talked about on this episode, on this podcast, and you're like, great, how do I do this? Well, make sure you go ahead and register, because I taught you a lot of what you should be doing, tried to help you lose some mistakes that you might be doing, shifting your perspective on certain things, which I was able to provide some value. But now it's time to go a step deeper and show you guys what to do and help you start to get all of this out there. Because again, like I said, I believe to my core that if you really want to make a change and you really want to make an impact, it all starts with your content. But if you're not sure on how to communicate, it doesn't matter how good your content is. And that's why right now you're producing, I'm assuming you're likely producing amazing and beautiful information and content, and you're not seeing the results. Because again, information by itself is not the one and only thing that will cause you to grow your business. There's a lot of invisible things, and I want to make those visible to you on this video series, but also this live viewing party. So all I need you to do is go to brandonlucero.com/video series, and you can go ahead and opt in for that. And on the thank you page, there will be a link for you to register for the live viewing party. Okay. We're only doing it once or twice a year. This is the second time we're doing it this year. I'm not sure how many times we're going to do it next year. So make sure you are there now. And I'm not just saying this as like a scarcity tactic or something. We literally have people after we shut down the content revolution that have told us that they regret not making time to be there, and they can't believe they have to wait another 6 months to a year to get that information. You can get there and watch that information, and you can do it now. You don't have to wait another 6 months or another year. It's all free. You just have to make the time. So with that said, hopefully I'll see you guys there. And that's it for this episode. Take care. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.